We welcome you to our services tonight. I figured everybody got quiet. It was time for me to get up here. Thank you for being here tonight. We're so thankful to have our brother Delton Mcguire with us again tonight. I gave you his information this morning as far as his qualifications, why he does this. Was able to spend the day with him and enjoyed that visit very much. So thankful he came our way to face this very important issue of parenting. And I found out that more than his qualifications, more than any of that, he does this because he wants to. And he realizes the problem and he wants to help folks do better. And we appreciate his spirit and his attitude with that. We're looking forward to another session tonight as he deals with some of the electronic thing, TV, media, and that sort of thing, and I hope that you will listen attentively. Join now, if you will, with Jeremy as he leads us in our singing.
Number 718, would you stand with me as we sing We Shall Assemble? 718. We shall assemble on the mountain, we shall assemble at the throne, with humble hearts into his presence, we bring an offering of song. Glory and honor and dominion unto the Lamb.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you at this time for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. We thank you for this opportunity that we have to assemble here together again today in the comforts of this building, to study another portion of your word, to take things that you have said and apply them to our lives. And we are especially thankful for Brother Mcguire, who has come to bring us information about social media, things on the internet, and apply them with a scriptural twist to our lives and help us to better understand what is out there, things that can attack our families, our children, our homes. We pray that as he brings us the lesson this evening, that we will pay attention and take note of those things so that we can help our families be stronger and more prepared for the things that they face out there on the internet. We also pray, Lord, that you would be mindful of those who are unable to be with us this evening. We have a number of our members who are sick, those who are recovering from surgery, those who will be undergoing surgery, those who are just physically unable to get out to come to services. We pray that you would be with them, to bless them and strengthen them, and help them to soon be back in a more wanted way of life. We pray that you would be with the leaders of our country as they make decisions that govern this country each and every day and protect this country. And we pray that they would always look to you for guidance, that they would put you in the forethought of their decisions, that they might make decisions that will help make this country safer, stronger, and better for Christians to live in. We also pray, Lord, that as we go throughout each and every day of our lives, that we would always look to you for guidance, that we would put you first in our lives, and that when we, not only as we make decisions about the things that we view and participate in on the internet, but also just those personal relationships, those people close to us that affect our lives daily. Lord, we pray that you would help us to find friends who will help keep us close to you and not those who will take us farther away from you. We know sometimes in situations in which we work and go to school that we may be thrust into situations that are not desirable for a Christian. But we know that if we truly put you first in our lives and put only thoughts of Christianity in our lives, it will help us through those tough times. Lord, we pray that as we go throughout the rest of this service this evening, that you would be with us, watch over and protect us, and as we depart here after the service is over, take us safely to our homes and help us be back at the next appointed time. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Using your hymnal, you can mark number 945, Kneel at the Cross. That will be our song of invitation after our lesson tonight, 945. Next will be Create in Me a Clean Heart. Create in Me a Clean Heart. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, O Lord, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of my salvation, and renew a right spirit within me. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these
I'll be reading from Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. He who receives you receive me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he who receives a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones only a cup of cold water in the name of the disciple, assuredly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward.
I'm going to stand down here so I can see the screen here better. First, I want to say how much you've genuinely made me feel welcome, and I thank you for that. Tonight's session is a little different than this morning. Tonight, I'm going to be talking mostly about television. I used to do this in reverse order. I sort of did it by age. I'd start off in the morning with Bible class and talk about television, mostly about little children. Then in my sermon section, I had this pretty dynamic section about video games and all the violence and problems that creates. And then in the third section, I talked about social media, or at least what we called social media 5-10 years ago. Is my PowerPoint coming up? There we go. Okay. But tonight, before I cover the screen, I just want to say some things very sincerely. I've been in child care one form or the other for about 20-something years now. I've been studying this topic specifically for 20-something years now, and very, very closely for the last 12 or 13. Y'all, I'm frightened. And the reason I'm frightened is because the new information that's just come out in the last few weeks, as I said this morning, proves, at least from a scientific perspective, that our concerns are merited. Now I'm going to tell you something that you're going to get upset with me for saying out loud. Statistically, our children are normal. Statistically, our children are normal. That means when I say that 80% of the children are involved in something that's bad, I'm talking about 80% of the children in this room. Don't think our children are exempt. They're not. There's been study after study after study that says we within the churches of Christ in almost all issues are statistically normal. That should frighten you, because it means we've got issues right now that we're not acknowledging, because we all think our children are perfect. I had 3 of them. I think they're still perfect, but I know that in reality they're not. Now that may frighten you and it may upset you, and I'm okay with that. I'm a visitor. I'm going home. But y'all, it's real. So you need to be concerned about these issues. I picked some selected books, and I want to talk about them for just a moment before I go to my section about television. The book that I quoted a lot this morning, as I said earlier, it just came out last week. I bought it on my Kindle the day it came out. IGN. And of course, the most important part about that long title is are completely unprepared for adulthood and what that means for the rest of us. Our children are maturing slower. Now, our children might not like me to say that out loud either, but they've pretty well proven from these studies that an 18-year-old is acting like a 15-year-old socially, and a 15-year-old is acting like a 12-year-old socially. And I've talked to some of you, and we know part of why that's happening. Part of it's the child's fault. Part of it's the parent's fault. Part of that is the helicopter parents, and I don't mean that in a negative way, the helicopter generation of parents who are hovering over their kids all the time and causing some of these delays to occur. It's not necessarily bad, but it is what it is. We're going to look at the details of the text-wise family in just a moment. The whole book is basically a chapter each on these 10 items that we're going to look at. I went through them very briefly this morning, but I need to look at them in a little bit more detail. Last Child in the Woods, I mentioned that again this morning. It's a fascinating book about how you really ought to get your child outside. Last Child in the Woods, the Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder, I think is the title of it. It's written in case you live in the city or in the country. And the idea is to get your child out of the house. It's complicated. The Social Lives of Networked Teens by Dana Boyd. I've read that book. It's a good book. It actually views most of the issues we're looking at from a positive perspective rather than a negative. She just says basically the media are the version of a phone like we had when I was a kid. Basically, it's just a different source. I agree with some of what she says. Media Choices, Convictions, or Compromise by Philip Telfer. He's a gentleman that does a lectureship outside of the Church of Christ, very similar to what I'm doing here, and he's written some excellent text on that. Parenting Well in a Media Age, Keeping Our Kids Human, is a book that's been out probably 15 years, but it deals with identifying your parenting identity, but more than anything else, if you feel you've lost this battle that we're talking about all day today, it gives you tools to reinstate the battle so that you can possibly win. It's an excellent book if you have already lost this battle and you're out of control. Well, I should say your child is out of control because you haven't controlled them. Not necessarily negative, but that's what we're really dealing with. Let's look fairly quickly at these 10 items we looked at this morning. Now, I read this book from cover to cover. It's an easy read. You can read the whole book in about an hour and a half, and I'm a slow reader. And he's a bit optimistic, okay? And he admits that he doesn't even do everything he says in the book because it's hard. But nevertheless, you might want to consider some of these things. He says these are the cardinal rules in this house. He says we develop wisdom and courage together as a family. That's what I was speaking of this morning in my sermon. Spend time together as a family. Number 2, we want to create more than we consume. So we fill the center of our home with things that reward skill and active engagement. What he's saying there is get involved with something besides the television or your phone. Learn to play music, learn to sing, learn to do things that are better than inconsequential things that you may be doing on your smartphone. We are designed for a rhythm of work and rest. So 1 day a week and 1 week a year, we turn off our devices and worship, feast, play, and rest together. That's harder than it sounds. It's harder than it sounds. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I love it when I go way out in the country. We own some land way out in the country in East Texas. My phone doesn't work there. Y'all, it's a blessing not to be concerned about what might come across on my phone while I'm there. I've been thinking about mailing my phone to myself, all right? That way I don't have to for at least 3 days. That's the safest way to handle this. Spend time doing things together. Number 4, we wake up before our devices do, so then they don't go to bed before we do. In other words, make sure that you don't deal with your phone in the middle of the night. One of the most commonly talked about problems right now, it's not the biggest problem, one of the commonly talked about problems, especially before Samsung fixed the problem, was people catching their beds on fire with their phone. Part of it was because they had a battery problem with Samsung phones, but a part of it is because they would put this item that uses electricity and gets hot in the wrong places, under a pillow. Okay, it's called fire. We aim for no screens before double digits. He's talking about 10 o'clock, both at school and at home. He's saying we don't have to have them all the time. We use screens for a purpose, and we use them together rather than aimlessly and alone. In other words, if you're going to take the time to get on the internet on your phone, make sure you're doing something worthwhile, not just because it's there. Car time is conversation time. Y'all, have y'all seen this Allstate commercial on TV right now? Okay? I absolutely love it. The guy's sitting there driving, and he says, my kids are doing this in the back of I'm doing this over here, and I'm getting a discount that I'm not telling my wife about because she's too busy over here playing with her phone, okay? And I'm not going to tell her about it, all right? It's a fantastic commercial about just how involved we are with our phones. And he says, I can't do it because I'm driving, so I'm having fun all by myself. Spouses have one another's passwords, and parents have total access to children's devices. This is where parents will argue with me a lot. They say, my child has some sense of privacy. I'm sorry, they shouldn't. Okay? They shouldn't. Not if you want to deal with them in a positively moral way. You should have access. You should have access to all your child's passcodes. You should be their friend on Facebook. You don't have to look like their mom and dad. You know, they have avatars, okay? All right? You look like somebody else. Give yourself another name, but you're one of their friends. Why? So that you can see what they're doing. I really think this is a biggie. You need to pay attention to that. You need to have all your children's passwords. And your spouse needs to have your password. And in my house, my wife and I have each other's passwords. Keeps us honest, all right? So do that in your house. We learn to sing together rather than letting recorded and amplified music take over our lives and worship. Now, I don't know why he stuck that in that book in that odd place, but he did. But it's a good idea. I think it's because he's a music professor, all right? He's saying spend time together with music. And finally, we show up in person for the big events in life. We learn from being fully present at our moments of greatest vulnerability. We hope to die in one another's arms. He's saying be a family. Be a family that shows this love and concern for each other. Okay, I'm going to do something I didn't do this morning. Anybody got any questions before I get started on the next section? I have my hearing aids turned on full blast. Okay, let's now look at a different topic. Oh yeah, that is up there. I thought I took it out. That is my granddaughter at 1 year old. Why is it there? Because I've always wanted to show a picture of my granddaughter at 1 year old. Okay, all right. This is her eating her first lemon. All right. I just couldn't resist doing that. She's now 7. All right. Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 and 23 tells us, the eye is the lamp of the body, so then if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is dark, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? That's what we're dealing with when we spend time on the internet, whether as adults or as children. We're either taking in dark stuff or we're taking in light stuff. And we need to think hard about how much time we're taking in dark stuff and avoid that and take in more light stuff. And y'all know what I'm talking about. The psalmist put it this way in 119, verses 9 through 16. How can a young man keep his way pure? By keeping it according to your word. With all my heart I have sought you. Do not let me wander from your commandments. Your word I have treasured in my heart, that I may not sin against you. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. With my lips I have told of all the ordinances of your mouth. I've rejoiced in the way of your testimonies as much as in all riches. I will meditate on your precepts and regard your ways. I shall delight in your statutes. I shall not forget your word. The writer there is giving advance to young men, but it applies to all of us. Let's talk about television. Now, I've been talking about television for a very, very long time. Actually, my first television presentation was it was 20 years ago. Some things have changed a lot. Some things haven't changed at all. So y'all bear with me if some of my statistics, I get them a little bit backwards here. I have trouble keeping them straight. They change so often. So last time I did this, I realized I had one statistic here and another statistic there, and they didn't agree. Why? Because I forgot to change it after it changed. But nevertheless, television is a big part of our lives, and you can't ignore it because it is still what we, as a culture, spend more time doing as a whole than anything besides work. And even our children that are tied to their phones are still spending a lot of time on television. Now, I'm going to have to switch gears on terminology here. I need to talk about screen time. Now, we used to just talk about television before before phones got smart, all right? We just talked about television and how much time you spent watching television. Now it's screen time. That screen time includes television. It includes Netflix on your phone. It includes other things you're doing on your phone, on your smartphone. The hours mount up. Television, there's a lot of good about it. There's a lot more mediocre and a lot of bad. Now, I'm going to deal with a little bit more history in this session than I have before. But the average person, now y'all, average, that means twice as many above as many as below. The average person will spend 9 years of their lives watching TV. Remember what I said a while ago? We're statistically normal. What are you missing? I love this scene. I believe that's, I've actually been to that location. I didn't take the picture, but I've been to that cliff on the Arkansas River. I'm sorry, the Buffalo River up in northern Arkansas. I don't know how they got that chair and that TV there, but they had to work hard because I had to hike in to get there. But nevertheless, it's a beautiful scene, and all this that I'm saying here is in little bitty print there, but he's saying he's in that wonderful, beautiful place, and he's watching TV. Doesn't make sense. The young and the old are the groups that watch TV the most. Those under 6 and those over 65 watch about the same amount of TV. Why? Because they're the ones that have time to watch TV. Rest of us go to school or go to work. The average person watches TV 5 hours a day. Now, I don't. I do watch a lot of TV. I'm not anywhere close to 5 hours. I'm probably an hour a day. That 5 hours is up from 10 years ago when I started talking about this earlier. It's up an hour from 10 years ago. 67% of Americans always or often watch TV while eating dinner, up from 40% 10 years ago. We like our televisions. I have the rule at our house, whether it's just me and the wife or even just me, the TV goes off. The TV goes off during supper. 56% of children ages 8 to 16 have a TV in their bedrooms. Okay. Some people got upset that I told them this, and you can take it the way it is. There's been 6 studies about kids having TVs in their bedrooms. Now, they're all what we call correlation studies. Now, what a causation study says is that A happened and B happened, and that caused C to happen. Causation studies are powerful. Correlation studies just say A happened and B happened, and that might be related to C. Admittedly, these 6 studies that they've done are correlation studies. They don't really prove anything, but they sink some ideas in. Here's the result of those 6 studies. In every study, the better educated parents did not let their children have a television. In every study, the better educated parents did not let their children have a television. What does that mean? I'll say it out loud. The less educated parents allowed their children to have a TV in their bedroom. I just say take it for what it's worth. Okay? All right? I know that'll offend some of you, I'm sorry. But that's what the statistics are. 70% of daycare centers use TV during a typical day. The average youth spends 900 hours per year in school and 1,200 hours a year watching TV. Our children do spend more time in television than they do in school. 55% of young adults admit to postponing their bedtimes for the internet or TV. And my most interesting and new statistic is the next one. The average American sees 1 million TV commercials by the age of 55. Half of the amount that they saw 10 years ago. Somebody give me a reason. I know you're smart people. Why would commercials be cut in half? There's 3 initials for it. DVR. Okay? All right? I don't watch TV commercials at all anymore. What few shows I watch, I record on my DVR and I flash forward, or whatever it is. Yeah, flash forward through the commercials. So actually our television commercial consumption has been cut in half. Now we won't talk about what that's doing to the commercial television industry. We'll leave that one alone. But nevertheless, it's creating problems for them. But it's good for you. You don't have to put up with as many commercials. 54%, they redid this study to make sure it's still stuck. 54% of 4 to 6-year-olds, when asked, would rather watch TV than spend time with their dads. More than half of kids asked in a general survey would rather spend time watching TV than time with their dads. In the U.S., homes are more common than bathrooms. You are more likely to have TV than you are a bathroom in your house. The average number of TVs is 2.24 per house, and 65% of households have 3 or more. We do like our televisions. Now I want to also say something about that while I'm thinking of it. I'm actually talking there not about televisions. Now, I used to be talking about TVs. Now I'm talking about monitors, because there's a difference, all right? A monitor is something that you're spending screen time with that may or may not be connected to the television world, all right? But I want to tell you something else, and this is just because it's the most humorous statistic I've heard lately. Do you know what our teenagers are discovering that they didn't know existed? This was in the Wall Street Journal, y'all. Free TV. Free TV. Now, what are we talking about by free TV? Antennas. Okay? We have an entire generation that generally did not know according to this article, that generally did not know that antennas existed. They had either got it on their phone, or they got it on their satellite receiver, or they got it on their cable. They did not know you could put an antenna on the back of your television and pick up anywhere from 1 or 2, like when I was growing up to, in Dallas, 40 channels. Okay, I just think it's funny that they didn't catch on to that for a long, long time. 56 Americans pay for cable TV. 6 million videos are rented per day. They used to be rented in real person. Now they're rented on either Prime or other places as well. 49% of Americans think they watch too much TV. I've got some repeat statistics here. There's a lot of violence on TV. The number of violent acts seen on TV by the age of 18 is 150,000. Okay? The number of 30-second commercials in a year seen by the average child is 16,000. And these are from the Nielsen research. I want to do a little survey here. And these numbers have been re-researched by me and others, and they haven't changed. Family quiz. And you're welcome to speak up, even if I can't hear you. I wish I could. At what age do children begin imitating behaviors they see on TV? 14 months, 2 years, or 3 years? All the parents speak up. You know the answer. 14 months. That's right. Our children begin imitating TV almost as quickly as they can watch it. When are children exposed to the most violence on TV? During prime time, and this slide used to say cartoons on Saturday morning. All right? Saturday morning cartoons literally don't exist as they did before. So, cartoons in non-prime time. Are they going to get more violence on prime time, or are they going to get more violence in cartoons? What's that? Somebody, I couldn't hear you. Is it cartoons? I hope you're saying cartoons. Okay. On quantity of violence per minute, cartoons are worse, a whole lot worse than primetime TV. I love this statistic. One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite violent movies, is Red Dawn. Red Dawn was listed for years as the most violent movie ever made. It's a World War III movie, okay? All right, bunch of kids from Colorado have to fight all the communists for the entire movie. All right, it's been out about 25 years ago, a long time ago. Patrick Swayze was the star. I love it. I have a copy of it. However, it was taken over by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Actually took over as the most violent movie ever made. To give you an idea how much violence we're talking about, Kill Bill 2 took it over as the most violent movie made. And as far as I know, that's still the last one. Kill Bill 2 still has the record. The point here is the cartoons are not. This is quantity of violence, not intensity of violence. I admit there's a big difference between the violence in Kill Bill 2 and the violence in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But on that quantity, it does make a difference. Cartoons in prime time. Media experts say that parents should limit screen time to how many hours per day? And this is they've done this again. They put out some new research, some new ideas, and I'll go ahead and answer that one because everybody gives me a different answer. Ideas 1 to 2. And the newest research says 2 hours of screen time, that includes your phone, includes everything, your monitor, your TV, 2 hours a day is enough. And that's what you should limit it to for your children. Y'all, that's hard to do. I tell everybody when I show this, if you can do it, more power to you. All right? You're going to have trouble doing it. I probably don't limit myself to 1 to 2 hours of screen time per day. All right? It's hard. But that's what the experts recommend. What are the documented negative effects of over 4 hours of screen time per day? The options are increased risk of obesity, increased adult use of drugs and alcohol, and lower reading scores. Anybody want to give me an answer? I think I heard somebody say all of the above. The answer is all of the above. And there's lots and lots of studies about all of these issues, and too much, 4 hours or more of screen time per day, and remember 5 is average, all right, creates these problems. So a lot of the problems we're dealing with overall within our society are created by too much screen time. How should parents help their children to consume media products responsibly? Tell them of what you approve and disapprove of. Now we're talking about TV here. Tell them of what you approve and disapprove of and why you feel that way. And as I mentioned earlier, your children do care what you think. It's not their job to act like it, okay? But they do. And watch TV with them and explain things to them. This last one's got me in trouble before. The answer, of course, is all the above. I really believe that's the solution to TV, especially with teenagers, okay? When I was in charge of house parents, I used to be an executive director for a children's home. They would say, "Can we watch this PG-13 movie?" Well, we're a Christian children's home. I don't think PG-13 movies are probably okay. So what did I tell them? Under this condition, you watch it with them, and you talk about it, and you fast forward through the bad scenes, and you talk about what's right or wrong. Let me tell you why, and this comes up again a little bit later. If you tell your child they can't watch a specific television show or watch a specific movie, scientists have studied this, what are the odds they're going to do it anyway? 75%. My mom one time told me I couldn't. I was a good kid. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't do anything wrong. But my mom told me one time that, "Delton, you can't see this particular movie because it wasn't a bad movie. It was just one that sounded like it was bad." I said, "Okay." Well, the next Friday night, we still had drive-ins back then. The next Friday night, me and my buddy, we went to the drive-in, and we watched the main feature. And then that movie came in as the second feature, okay? So when my mom, probably the only time I ever lied to her, I mean that very sincerely, "Delton, what movie did y'all go see?" I told her all about that first movie I went to see, okay? Didn't mention the ones she told me I couldn't go see. If you tell your child they can't do something, they're going to work very, very hard most of the time related to media to do it anyway. That's just the way we are. So if you know they're going to watch it anyway, watch it with them. Watch it with them. I've actually tried that with my 17 and 18-year-old daughters when they were that age. And we would watch movies that they said, "Dad, everybody's talking about this movie, R-rated. Can we watch it?" And y'all, it was a sad situation to watch that horrible movie, but at least we agreed how horrible it was and how immoral it was by the time we got through watching it. And we fast forward through a lot of it. Now, I won't tell you which movie it was. You can ask me personally later, and I will. Watch TV with them and explain things to them. What's the youngest age a child should start using a computer? I don't agree with this one, but the experts say 3 years. All right? Experts say 3 years. If your child is in daycare, they're going to probably have access to a computer at 3 years. All right? Research says children become consumers at what age? Infancy, 3 years or 5 years? Anybody want to guess? Can they talk at infancy? No. So they're not consumers. So what's the next best option? 3 years. True story. My next door neighbor, I used to live in a duplex. My next door neighbor had a boy. On his 3rd birthday, his dad got him an action figure for one of the Disney movies. And his response was, "Daddy, where are the rest of them?" Because he had watched enough to know he didn't have the set. Your child becomes a consumer at 3 years old if they're watching television. Now, this is one that I'm totally off base here. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Does your child have a V-chip, and are you using it? If your TV is less than 17 years old and over 13 inches, it is required by federal law to have a V-chip. I'll explain what a V-chip is in just a minute. If it's smaller, it probably has one. Your satellite or cable box probably has the equivalent of a V-chip, and no, you're probably not using it. I'm going to ask this question. How many of you are actually using your V-chip? If you raised your hand, I've done this presentation 99 times. If you raised your hand, you'd be the 3rd person to raise their hand. Okay. What the V-chip is, it's your ability to program your television, the one that brings in stuff off the air, gives you ability to program your television so that it doesn't play movies of a certain rating, television shows of a certain rating, or you can program your satellite box or your cable box. Almost all of them have this available. You can tell it you can't play this show, or you can't play shows of this rating. Now let me tell you, that is the federal government's excuse for not limiting what comes across the air. Their excuse is, we've given you the ability to control that as parents. If you'll use it, we got no problem. But most parents don't use it. The second time I did this presentation at a congregation in Dallas, Fort Worth actually, this lady walked up to me And she says, I'm one of the elders' wives, and I need to tell you a story. One of the deacon's wives brought her son, her 6-year-old son, into the dentist's office in which I work. And Mom's back talking to the doctor, the dentist, and I'm talking to the little boy. Let's call him Johnny. Johnny, what do you like to do in your spare time? This is a true story, y'all. She says, oh, I like to watch TV. Well, what kind of TV do you like to watch? 6 years old. I like to watch those naked women late at night. He discovered what comes on Showtime at 2 a.m. All right? If you're really serious about controlling what your children are watching, you can program your TV to keep things from not showing or to make things not show. And like I said, I've done this presentation probably to at least 7,000 or 8,000 people, and 2 people up to this date have raised their hand that they're using the V-chip. That is the reason the government says they can put anything they want to on your TV, especially late at night, because you have the ability to control it, yet nobody is controlling it. TV facts. In 1950, only 10% of the homes had TVs. By the 60s, it was 90%. And the last statistics I found was in 2005, 99% of the homes had TVs. They're more common than telephones or toilets. I need to double check that number now that cell phones are so popular. We talked about that. 54 to 56% of children have TVs or monitors in the bedrooms. And like I said, that doesn't count their smartphones. And I talked about the correlation studies. There's actually been over 1,000 studies related to whether violence in TV causes violence in children. And I don't have time to go through some of those, but the bottom line is 994 out of 1,000 said yes. Yes. Now that's one of those we have to have scientists tell us what we already know. The first study that was ever done on that, I believe it was in 1966. They took a bunch of 6-year-old boys, little 6-year-olds, and they took 2 groups of them, and one of them watched violent cartoons, and the other one watched passive cartoons. They brought them together, and they put them in a room with one of these bow-up, inflated Bobo dolls. I actually remember what they were, okay? They looked to see what happened. Oh, duh! The children that watched the violent commercials beat up the Bobo doll, and those that watched the passive commercials didn't beat up the Bobo doll. Bobo's a clown, by the way. All right. Yeah, we sort of knew that, but we have to have scientists tell us what we already know. Why are we so apathetic? Perhaps many adults are quick to dismiss the influence of TV because they don't admit that they too have been influenced by it. I really believe that the primary reason we don't control our televisions is because we as dads don't control our televisions is because we don't want to tell our children what they're watching, because then we have to control what we're watching. All right? Now here's a humorous statistic. It's real. Who's got their, you probably already know the answer. If the whole family's in the living room watching TV, who's got their remote control in their hand 94% of the time? What's that? The father. Isn't that, yeah, we're control freaks, okay? All right? 94% of the time, if a family's watching TV together, the dad has the remote control in his hand. He needs to be the one controlling what the family's watching. Matthew 5:29 and 30. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. It's a serious issue. What I'm going to look at for the next 3 slides very briefly are those proven effects of those 994 studies I told you about a moment ago. These are the proven direct effects of television. Increased aggressive behavior. Increased willingness to use violence. We know this. We just need scientists to tell us every now and then. Desensitization. Increased acceptance of violence as normal. Y'all, I won't get into it, but can you remember when a lot of commercials bothered you when they first came out? A whole lot of them, about a whole lot of products that we're paying attention to right now. Okay? It's embarrassing how desensitized we have become. We have commercials on everything now, and we just go about our business. And the mean world syndrome, that's one we don't think about it much, but it's also been proven as well. That means if your child watches a whole lot of TV, they think the world is as mean as what they say on TV. According to one statistician, if the real world was as violent as the television world, the world would be depopulated in 32 years. We'd kill each other off. So if your child watches that, and what they did primarily was studies in the big cities where children were not able to get away from their immediate neighborhoods. And what they learned was if you watch all of that, you begin to think the world is that way. Now, the world is not always a good place, but it's not as bad as the general concept that we see on television. How do we protect our children? Don't want to go home without giving you some ways of dealing with this. Number one, sorry about it not being, it's called a PowerPoint problem, not being straight. Pay attention to the programs your children watch. Watch some of them with them. Now, I'm more now talking to younger parents, but watch TV with your child. You don't have enough child. If your child is under 6, they're probably watching 5 or 6 hours a day, all right? You don't have that much time. You've got a life, but watch what you can with them. Set limits on the amount of time that they spend with the television or whatever the screen time now is. Point out that although the actor has not actually been hurt or killed, such violence in real life results in pain or death. I want to spend a moment on this one. If you watch Wile E. Coyote get squashed by a 10,000-ton rock 3 times in an hour and always crawls out from underneath that, what does that tell a 3-year-old? It tells them that a 10,000-ton rock will not squash you or kill you. Here's the problem. They often begin to think, that something that is harmful won't necessarily hurt you. Now, I need to get state specific now. I live in Texas, all right? We love our guns in Texas, all right? The average Texan has average person in Texas has 5.4 guns in their house, which means you've got statistically, it means if you've got 5 people in your house, you've got about 20 guns. Y'all, my wife is anti-gun, and I've got 4, all right? I inherited them all right? The problem there is that it's a real issue with this particular issue here, because if your child is used to seeing someone hurt on TV, they get killed in this episode, yet they're in the next one. What does that tell a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old? It tells them that it's not bad. Tell them that that's not real. Watch it with them. Because otherwise, they may pick up a fork and stick you and jab you and draw blood thinking that you're going to be okay in 5 minutes. It's very real. Tell them what's going on. Number 4, refuse to let children see shows known to be violent. Change the channel or turn off the TV when something offensive comes on with an explanation of what's wrong with the program. Don't make it a power struggle. Just remember that if you're the dad, you've got the TV. If you're watching a television program and something comes on that you should not be watching, and you're the dad or the mom or the responsible teen, and you mute or stop the TV program, what do you have then more than any other time in your child's life? Their attention. Why? Because you just stopped their favorite television program. Take advantage of that opportunity as one of your greatest learning opportunities. Tell them what is wrong with it. Even if you watch the rest of it, tell them why it was wrong, or why that is an unacceptable situation. Use the remote control for what it is. It's a tool if you use it properly in your house. Disapprove of violent episodes in front of the children, stressing the idea that such behavior is not the best way to resolve a problem. Tell your children what is right and what's wrong. And finally, to offset peer pressure among friends and classmates, contact other parents and agree to enforce similar rules about the length of time and type of program the child may watch. One time we were house parents at a children's home. We had teenage boys, and we were at the video store back when they still existed. And he walks up to me and he says, Delton, can I rent this video? And I said, no, it's R-rated. There's nothing wrong with it. I've seen it 5 times already. Why? Because when you go to other people's houses, he'd watch it. If your child goes to someone else's home and they may not agree with you, you're afraid they may not agree with you related to where your standards are, at least tell them about it. 2 things might occur. Number 1, they may pay attention to you. And number 2, they may ask you why you feel that way. And as Christians, always needing to have the opportunity to tell people why.